for the complete September 3rd, 2023. Will you please join me in the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to our land acknowledgement, we acknowledge that the land on which we are gathered today is the unceded territory of Riyadh, Lupa, Karut, Natal, Talawa, Wailaki, and Euro. We honor them and all neighboring tribes by our ongoing commitment to developing trusting, reciprocal, and long-lasting partnerships. Item, public hearing for the final budget. Are there any comments? Seeing none, I'd like to move on to 2.1, which is swearing in on the trustee. Double three, Hollister's Dan. I, Sybil Godfrey.
I, Sybil Godfrey.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend.
That I will support and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
And that I will bear true faith and allegiance. I will bear true faith and allegiance.
I will bear true faith and allegiance.
To the Constitution of the United States.
To the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And that I will faithfully.
And that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties on which I am about to enter.
Discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations. Do we have any public comments?
No, there were none.
Board member comments.
You were ahead of me last. Oh, Richard. Okay, of course.
Hi, I attended the sports dinner auction that a lot of us did. It was an incredible thing. And then attended the foundation board meeting where the first thing we did was applaud Marty for the outstanding job he had done on the sports auction. The entire board was quite enamored with the whole project. And then we accepted a 2-year audit, which was pretty interesting, done by different auditors than the do our board audit. And I like our auditors much better. And then I went to convocation where, of course, we all love the president's opening, but the students were the true stars of it. And a couple of things that I took away from the students was one question was asked of them, what could CR do better? And their answer was nothing, which I thought was all telling and a real comment on the faculty, staff, and administration. And the thing that really stuck with my mind, obviously, is somebody commented that we don't understand what our students go through just to get to the door. Just to get to the door. I mean, that's an amazing concept of how that is. And then I did do the wine tasting after that, which was great fun at Pastore's place. And unfortunately, I did the ethics class as well, which in my opinion was a complete waste of time. But that was my month with CR.
Thank you. Mallory.
Well, I wasn't going to mention it, but I too did the ethics class twice because the first time when I was all done, I couldn't get it to accepted. So
I would have thrown my computer
I
across
was
the wall.
about to do that. But I didn't. And I too went to the sports auction, and it really was outstanding. Congratulations, Marty. It's really a wonderful job. And I did just want to mention that I wanted to thank President Flamer and President Diggin for arranging to have at our retreat that we had in August, the VP from ACCJC to be the accreditation training, Kevin Cottonball. It really was well done, and it really helped me because I was on this ad hoc committee that was looking at some of the categories for reaccreditation. And it was just time well spent, and I thank you both for arranging it and making it happen. That's all.
My turn. So I had a very sports themed CR month. I attended the sports auction, which was a wonderful event. It seemed it was even better attended than last year. Yes, we think it was. I also did an impromptu run with, is it Hannah Hartzell?
Oh, yes.
I was running around the golf course in Arcata, the golf course loop, and she invited me to run with her, and I tried to hold on, and she ran and chatted with me and told me all about how wonderful the team is, the cross country team, and how much she has grown through sports. And I think that really went well with the sports auction, and what I've noticed is the sort of lifelong learning that happens through sports. I also went to the football game on Saturday, and that was really wonderful. And so all of this is tied together. I'm reading a book right now, an ethnography of college life and learning. And I just finished the section on co-curricular activities, and specifically sports. And the anthropologist, Susan Bloom, makes a point after having interviewed hundreds of students that so much learning takes place on the field, in the locker room, at the dinner table when people are thinking about fueling themselves. And it's really embodied learning. And I think often we just think about academics as a place for students gain so much in higher education, but also sports.
So my question is, how long did you keep up with Hannah?
Around the golf course,
Yeah.
but it was a much harder run than I was
She's quite good.
in for.
Yes.
And like I said, she was chatting the whole time, and I was just trying to breathe. So my answers were, yes. And her coach, Elmore, was on an e-bike.
Oh.
Yeah, so he was accompanying us on an e-bike.
Any other trustee comments? Okay, Mr. Mackey.
I would just add that I attended the convocation, which was a very positive experience. Board workshop, also very positive experience, and the CCLC government relations Zoom meeting about budget and bills. Not quite a positive experience, but important.
I also attended the CR dinner and auction on August 10th, and what a great turnout it was, and just so much community support, and seeing familiar faces from the past that just continue, like Coach Whitmire and Coach Giacometti that were here for years, and had very successful teams and still supporting athletics, and so many community members that I recognize. So that was really positive experience. And then I also attended Convocation, and it's always an exciting time of the year to reflect on the past and look forward to the coming school year. Thank you.
Well, I'm good.
Okay. With our student trustee, I wondered is there anything you'd like to share of anything related to CR from this last month?
I could just touch a little bit on the ACR, I suppose. We're planning to have our first official meeting next week. We're very excited to work with our new advisor, Todd Olson, and we're really excited to improve our communication with CR admin, especially in the business office, to make our budgetary requests a lot smoother this semester.
Okay, thank you. So it's my turn for the report. I was also able to participate in the government relations webinar, and I know actually,
Was that just this past month?
yeah. And we also had President Kramer on and Vice President Morrison on the board. So I thought CR had a great turnout. They always have, triple digit people participate. So if you're going to talk to you, so it's better to see the presentation from CR. The Chancellor's Office has their monthly webinar tomorrow at 9 a.m. If anybody would like those links, I can email them to you. And on Thursday, the League, the Community College League, has their town hall meeting, which is, it's their regular quarterly webinar, and that will be at noon. That's Thursday, a week from that Thursday, which is September the 16th. The League has their town hall. And if any of my fellow trustees would like those links, I would be happy to forward that information to you. I wanted to mention that this past month I received my issue of Humboldt State magazine, and very impressed to see that our own President Flamer received the 2023 President's Distinguished Service. And I don't know how many of you get this magazine, and any alumni certainly do, maybe former faculty. They recognized three committee members. One was Connie Stewart, who's executive director of Temple. Another was Professor Robert Smith, who has had a long career in nursing there. And then our President Flamer, with 25 years of leadership experience. And they mentioned that he's a critical partner in educating students on this coast. So I wanted to make sure that we all recognize that honor that we received this past month. I guess you said it was in June that they actually had the ceremony. So congratulations. And that concludes my comments. Next item on the agenda are board committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? Okay, let's start with President and trustee members.
I just would like to report that the ad hoc committee on the VP and 2 APs that we see on our agenda today met, reviewed, consulted, edited, and have our first read for those today, and that's Trustee Kelly, Trustee Pedrotti, and myself.
Okay, thank you. And Robertson.
The ad hoc committee on accreditation review, the ISA review, met, and it's myself, Trustee Dr. Mullery, and Trustee Kelly. We were responsible for reviewing the ISER, the Institutional Self-Evaluation Report Standard 4 on leadership and governance. We found that the draft was a very strong draft at this point. We especially felt that there was ample and robust evidence for each of the different substandards that were being evaluated. We gave some minor comments and feedback that were passed along to the committee, and we look forward to hearing the report today. All of us, so thank you.
All right, moving on to 2.5, status of Board of Trustee request. Do any questions about that document? Over here. I'm sorry. Item 2.6, approve trustee travel to the CCLC 2023 annual convention in November. That's a Renaissance Esmeralda and Indian Wells.
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now we'll move on to 2.7, approve Board of Trustee goals for 23.
I move. I second.
Is there any discussion? And I want to remind the public that we did have an extensive workshop earlier in August where this was discussed in detail. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 2.8, discuss board policy relative to responsible use of artificial intelligence for official board pieces. Is there a motion? Discussion. Trustee Kelly, did you want to give us some background on this?
Sure. I asked that this be agendized just because, you know, we've been hearing what the college and staff and faculty have been going through on this issue. And I'm imagining we're going to be hearing a lot about this at trustee conferences, but I thought it would be smart for this board to start thinking about it, especially in the context of our own use. I know I have been using it to research issues and prepare my thoughts for some of these things. And being that we're a public body, I would think that we would want to maybe, especially in this time of unease about it and question about it, that we come up with a policy to be transparent about its use, to guide what we use or don't use. Obviously, we don't want to put confidential items in open source software ever, things like that. So I just thought we could have a discussion about it and maybe draft up a policy for the board.
Any other discussions? Would this be a policy for the district or for the board of members direct?
I was thinking for the board's use only. Just having a policy about the use of artificial intelligence.
For the trustees, you said.
Correct.
Could you give me a couple of examples of what you have used it for relative to board issues?
Sure. So recently I did a website audit of some of the other boards around the state. I was trying to prepare for, wasn't for this board, it was for the ACCT Regional Coordinators Network. You know, I've used it to look at some of the items that have come up on our agenda, to prepare some questions and thoughts that I have for some of it. I've used it to learn more. I've used it recently to learn more about the ICER process and a lot of that. It's not. Yeah.
What specifically are you using in ChatGPT, Green?
OpenAI.
I know many boards are using it in terms for policy, drafting policy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's many uses we could get into using it for that haven't even scratched the surface yet. For example, like during strategic planning that this board may have, imagining scenarios based on our historical data, for example. There's so many things that we could be using as a board around this, but I do think it would be smart for us to come up with a draft policy, discuss it, review it, approve it, while we're figuring out how to use it. Specifically, my biggest concern is around the use of confidential data or sensitive data, just governing that use and writing policy to limit that disclosure. Maybe it's covered under existing policy. I don't know, but okay. I didn't expect this board to be so quiet.
I think it's good for us to get in front of it, or I don't even think we're in front of it, but to start thinking about it. I think it's come up so much in my classrooms, for sure, with students, as well as with fellow faculty, and then in a more administrative way. So I think it is important for us to think about and potentially by policy form. So thank you.
So besides being sure that we are not disclosing information that would be confidential, which Obviously, they include closed session discussions, but what other points besides that would you think needed to be in a policy?
The only other thing that was kind of weighing on my mind was, disclosing whenever we use it, especially if we use it for drafting a policy or producing any kind of research for the board to digest. I would recommend that we disclose that, we use AI for many reasons, but the biggest one is these large language models that everybody's into right now oftentimes can create information that is biased and can have negative impacts if we just adopt it without thinking. And so by disclosing it, the rest of the board has an opportunity to think about it, vet it, rather than just take it as gospel.
Yeah, I think bias is an issue. So algorithmic bias is built into the code, and also that AI, these large language models can hallucinate. They can make things up. And so we also need to be very critical in our use of it.
I know that I believe it was Chris Gaines who gave a report to the trustees talking about faculty's presenting at it, and has probably delved into it much deeper than we able to at this point. And I wonder if they've already laid some groundwork that might be relevant to the concerns that we have related to trustees' use of it. Your example of, what do you call it, chat? I'm not personally very familiar. I wouldn't have any idea of how I could use it or how it might influence any of my actions.
I've not used it either.
Me either.
And in terms of my research that I do when I Google things, I don't consider that necessarily artificial intelligence. But supposedly, I guess some of that could be artificial.
Yeah, it is being built into search engines as we speak.
And so to call something artificial is subject to interpretation. It's the use of Google, the use of artificial intelligence. Subject to interpretation.
Yeah, I think that my distinction here is mostly around products like ChatGPT, because it is seen as a generative AI. Yeah.
Now, because you have the opportunity to interact at the ECC2 level, as well as the state level with CCCT, is this something that you could bring up to those boards and find out what kind of inquiries your trustees are making into this issue, and maybe bring back some information to us so that we will be reinventing the wheel, so to speak?
Sure.
Is that a possible next step?
You bet. In fact, I've had recent experience in suggesting changes to lead templates in the past, so this will be a good one. Maybe I'll learn something in the process. I'd love to.
Yes, something for sure. So that's a good topic. I wonder if you can also talk to your colleagues about what role the board has on the educational quality of their institutions, about ChatGPT or other AI, without getting into academic matters or 2+1.
I certainly wouldn't want the trustees to overstep their role in the institutional use of artificial intelligence. And I really respect the work that the Academic Senate is doing in that area, and would prefer to, seek their input and their guidance moving forward. Okay, I think we have some next steps to take on that one. We'll move on to another discussion item, which is 2.9, providing benefits to the board of trustee members. I think this is in This agenda item is in response to a request that Trustee One made at the last board meeting. And there's a little bit of a disconnect in my mind between what his request was and what background information was. So I want to make sure we clarify the purpose of this discussion. My understanding is, well, maybe Trustee Jordan, would you like to clarify the purpose of your request?
Well, it came about with wanting to increase the pool of candidates for the board with 4 seats coming up next year for election. And that currently without benefits and basically the stipend's $250 a month, that I think our pool of candidates isn't going to be that great. And so that was the reason that I brought up benefiting the board. Can I go a little further? So I just want to mention a little history for people that weren't on the board. When 3 of us were elected to the board, it was fully benefited. We paid nothing for our health insurance. And it was the whole shebang, so to speak, and the stipend. During show cause, there was the need to do something with the budget, obviously. And so a couple of things that the board elected to do by choice was, first, we gave up our stipend. I don't remember for how long we did. And then the whole subject of benefits came up. And that was when we decided to co-pay part of our benefits. And part of the reason for that was somewhat to show as an example to the entire college community, with negotiations coming up on contracts, that the board was stepping forward and starting to pay for part of our benefits. And in that whole equation of that, we decided that future board members would not get benefits. And this was all done under the umbrella of show cause. As many of you know in the room, we were in deep shit. We needed to do something, and the faculty were chipping in, staff, everybody were doing salary negotiations, and the board of trustees was equally giving up or contributing to help the budget. And so I think in retrospect, you look at the raises that the board has given to faculty, staff, and administrator. I don't know that Dr. Flamer can even say the last time the stipend was raised.
It hasn't been.
It hasn't been since the beginning of college.
For the last
20 years.
Since I've been here, 17 years.
Yeah, so there's never been a raise and on the stipend, and that I believe, Trustee Bingham can help me, that a lot of the other colleges, the trustees are fully benefited, and many of them even provide life insurance. And so I just think that at this time, with what's coming up ahead with the board, we need I personally feel we need a younger pool of candidates to take the college forward in the next, 10 years, whatever expression you want to use. And so that was why I brought the subject up.
Something else that was mentioned in the minutes is that you were curious where CR stands in comparison to similar sized colleges. I took a look at the dashboard that the league has related to a questionnaire they did. I'm not sure how long ago this last dashboard was created, but one of the questions had to do with the amount of districts that were providing health benefits. And although out of 116 districts, I didn't have 100% participation in this survey, there were only 2 districts that did not provide health benefits. And there were 68 that do provide full health benefits. There were 5 that had other scenarios. And there was 1 district that did partial. The actual dashboard has a map of California, and it has coded out by the region, so you can really zero in on which districts are doing which homes in terms of accountability. I think the other background information that we should mention is that, and I think you alluded to it, has a cost saving measure. At that point, we agreed not to, in the future, provide benefits to any new trustees. Those trustees, as the three of us, who were still on the plan, could pay towards the premium, but we would not get the full amount. And any trustees that wanted to opt out certainly could opt out. So now that we are looking at elections and developing a couple of candidates possibly for open seats, this does seem hopefully time for the discussion.
And along with the website you mentioned, I think Dr. Flamer mentioned something regarding the stipends, where we rank or where we stand in the state. Could you?
So by info, we set about $240 per meeting for stipend, and this student stipend is typically set by the board to be half or full. And we are not the highest, but then again, the stipend by Ed Code is set by the FTE level. But also Ed Code allows the board to increase it 5% annually, and the board has never done that since I have been here. It's always been a steady 240.
Yeah, please.
So we're just starting the discussion, but I would think we would, as part of the discussion, need an estimate of what it would cost if we were going to provide full benefits to all board members, or some kind of a co-pay arrangement for all board members. Because, right, you're not just looking at somebody new who might come on, you're looking at I believe, 4 trustees who haven't had a benefit option. So I think we need to have an understanding of what potential costs would be, and options for full, partial, whatever.
I wonder how influential benefits or increasing the stipend is to service here. I certainly have not kept any of my stipends since I started on the sport. I've given it back to the college. And in terms of benefits, I, of course, haven't been paid into the benefits program here to participate in that, because I'm allowed as a new trustee. But I just, I wonder when we're talking about the role of the trustees and what our mission is in terms of our relationship to the college, especially as we are kind of publicly elected community members, as we are looking at possibly going out to the community for assistance with student housing and all kinds of other things. I think maintaining a high standard and a reputation as servants to the public in this role is really important. And I think that if we maintain those boundaries, we may find that we recruit the right trustees to step up and run for election. And we trust people to follow the better angels of their nature.
And I appreciate that, but I also look at somebody that's 30 or 40 with kids. They can't give 40 hours like we do. You can't do these meetings without something to compensate your overall family income. It's just not possible. And as I started talking to people to run in my place, it's like, so what are the, what's the time commitment and what are the benefits? $250 a month, and it's laughed off, and so I just think that the caliber, one example I mentioned was the student trustee. We used to have an issue with student trustees, and then we doubled the stipend. And all of a sudden, we've gotten great trustees. I'm sure they don't look at whether they get 100 a quarter or 250, but it made a difference recently. So.
I think so. Oh, Just a question. I'm one of the 4 trustees who came in when there were benefits, but thankfully I have a really good benefit package myself. But I'll say to your point, when I was elected trustee, I didn't know about stipend. So when I got a check, it was like, what the heck is this? It was completely, now I'm just saying I didn't know about it. So to the point of, whether or not benefits would have encouraged me to run for the board, that's not why I ran. And I was younger then. I
16 years.
I didn't have children, but I guess it's just, do school boards, do they get stipends? Mm-hmm. See, I didn't know that. I thought it was all service. So that's my ignorance. I just didn't know.
It does vary, the insurance, and some get life insurance in addition to health insurance. And then some districts, especially in the K-12 arena, have capped what the premium is. But then they've done that as an institution. It hasn't just singled out the trustees, as we have done, kind of singled out the trustees. I think Trustee Dorn made a good historical point that we kind of did it as a model, hoping that it might catch on, but it didn't catch on. And so we respect the health benefits and have kept the health benefits full for all other employees. But we've kind of separated the trustees out as if they're not an employee. They're a separate entity and are treating them differently in that respect. Mm-hmm. In terms of looking at the best practices in the state of California for community colleges, that's why I made the reference to the league statute, because certainly the majority of community college districts do honor the stipend as well as health benefits, and some even have added life insurance. Mm. But since some of those districts are a lot more political than our district is, so that could be part of the difference. Mm-hmm.
So I will second what Trustee Mulder said. I had no idea that there was a stipend, and that similarly, when I received the check, I was confused. Yeah. And so it played no part at all in my stepping forward to sit on this board. And I don't know that. I don't know that it would serve as an incentive were it 5% more. That is still an amount of money that is not commensurate with the responsibility, but also not the amount of money that would make a significant difference in somebody's household economy. That said, I'm not saying that it's not trying to say that it's no money, that $240 means nothing. And in terms of the benefits, it was my understanding that if somebody has benefits through their employer, then they would not be eligible. Is that correct?
It's not in the policy.
Okay, and then that was a misunderstanding on my part. Okay.
One thing I'm noticing is that, there's different members owing different amounts. It just seems to me that it should all be the same. Like if you're currently serving, whether you have benefits or you don't, it should be the same. We're all putting in the work. So, just because somebody's been on longer or their grandfathered in, I don't know. I just feel like it should be evenly, whichever way we decide.
Trustee Kelly?
Thank you. To Trustee Dorn's point about student trustee participation with the increase of the stipend, that's not necessarily a correlation. There was a lot of efforts that were being put into raising up student trustees and getting them to participate. And I think that mostly the students deserve a lot of credit for that, and that they've kept up the tradition of filling that role. So again, I really question how much benefits or stipend will play into the pool of candidates we get. And as for a trustee, not in his 30s or 40s, actually 50, but with 4 kids, the youngest who's 6, juggling multiple responsibilities, it is a challenge. But it's also something that I believe in wholeheartedly, and I think we want trustees who feel that way and will throw themselves into it, both feet. I have found myself, falling down on duties sometimes in this role as a result of my overcommitments. But I still think that if it were up to me, I would prefer trustees who are running on election based on that hunger and desire to serve above all else, and let that be the focus. That's all I have.
Any other comments or discussion? Matthew?
Well, I would just add that I didn't know there was a stipend either. I was retired by that point, and I wasn't concerned about that. And I was old enough, I wasn't concerned about the insurance either. I don't think the stipend that raising at 5% a year is going to be an incentive for anybody in the near future. I'm willing to consider whether we should could or should be offering health benefits, because health insurance is an issue for many people, and sometimes hard for people to obtain. I agree with Trustee Kelly that, we want people who want to run for the board because they want to be on the board, serve on the board. And I'm not sure that offering health insurance is really going to draw a bunch of people who have, less interest, but they just want health insurance. I don't think that's, likely to happen. So I think it would help me to have some sense of what the expense for this would be. And then whether, I think we would need that information to fill out the discussion as to whether, it would be important for us to do that.
Trustee Kelly.
And just, if we are going to do some assessment of the cost, to keep in mind, we've had trustees like Trustee Imad, 26 years service on the board, Truitt, 10 years, 7 months, Ross, 21 years, 6 months, Smith, 9 years, 6 months, Bennett, 18 years. I mean, some of these trustees can be here for a while. And and not that we can't change policy down the road, but, if we're going to do a cost-benefit analysis, maybe we need to think about also, too, kind of the longevity of the trustee in relationship, not just what it would cost for a 4-year term. But because honestly, whether it's that trustee or some other trustee in their role, you're going to be paying these things forward year after year. So
right, it doesn't matter how long you've been there. You're going to have 7 people you have a cost for.
Yeah, if you keep it going, for sure. So seeing those long term is what I would like to see.
Some trustees are already covered through other avenues. I know when I was first elected, I was already covered with the former district for like 10 years. So I declined the district's coverage until the other coverage ran out. We also had a previous policy that paid trustees after they left the board. And they were paid, I don't know, perpetuity, or I don't know how many they paid. Before my time, that policy was changed. But we could still be possibly paying for Truitt. Truitt is paying his own to pay into part of his.
Truitt isn't paying it.
And then was not Mark. Okay, because at one point he was paying towards.
I don't think we should be mentioning that.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are definitely that if we do a cost estimate, that would be the total cost, but that's the potential total cost.
Mm-hmm.
Because of individual situation.
Well, it also depends on how you word the offering. You can say that the benefits exist while the person serving on the board, and then you eliminate the idea that people would continue to receive benefits after they serve on the board. But I think it is important to look at the cost and the long range of what you are obligating to, because once you establish it, it's harder to lower that cost or change that policy.
Trustee Dorn.
Just in due respect, the board did change that.
I know.
When we voted to do away with it.
I know.
And I never meant that, like Emot, to still be getting health insurance. I mean, once you're off the board, you're done. You know, I don't think it should be a retirement plan.
Yeah.
Well, we just go by our current policy.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I've never, ever dreamt.
No, we have changed it, but that would make it easy to do.
Right.
So shall we bring this back with cost estimates for a future meeting? Is that the pleasure of the board?
Would you think, if you're going to do that, would you as the president please ask me to do that at 8.1?
Okay, 8.1. All right. So I think we've had a good discussion and we can move on to our consent calendar agenda. Items from the consent calendar that any trustee would like to have removed at this time. Seeing none, may I have a motion?
I will approve the consent calendar.
I second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Oh,
I say aye.
Okay. Motion passes.
But I do have a comment. There's a typo on 3.6. It says in the subject line, it's the president's goals for 2023 to 35. Well, you might
That is so wrong. That is so wrong. You are quite right.
It's just in case people don't read down, it's 2023 to 2025, as we all know, but we probably should correct that somewhere.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
It's in writing.
And the board approved it.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Okay, 4.1, approve the monthly financial status report. Motion?
So
Second.
Okay, discussion.
I'll just give a brief overview. Not a whole lot to add besides what's in the background, but the monthly financial status report that you're seeing at today's board meeting is for activity through from July 1 of 2023 through July 31, 2023. And for the most part, our expenditures and revenues are on par with where we were at this point in time last year. And it's on par with the budget that we will be discussing in the next agenda item. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the monthly financial status report if there are any.
Seeing none. Vote here. Those in favor of approving the monthly financial report signify by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed? Any extensions? Motion passes. 4.2, approve the final budget.
I so move.
Second.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Thank you once again. I would be, so I'm just going to give a high-level overview of the 2023-24 final budget as well as the forecast. It's you'll see some changes from the tentative budget, but some things are still the same. And Julie, if you can open the attachment, please. Thank you. And I'm going to jump to PDF page 9, or if you're following page numbers, or excuse me, PDF page 8, or if you're following page numbers, it's page 1 of the report. And so this is, it's small, so I'm not expecting you to see this, but just some mentionings of the assumptions. And as I mentioned before, some of this is similar to the May, the tentative budget that was based on the May revise. We're still looking at between the 3 different revenue calculations, the student-centered funding formula calculation, hold harmless, and the prior year SCIF plus COLA. The prior year SCIF plus COLA revenue is going to be the highest of the 3 for the district. And this is also in line with the advanced apportionment report if anyone follows those reports from the Chancellor's office. So we're looking at having our state apportionment at $39.821 million for the year. That's the current estimate. And this is also based off of an 8.22% COLA. That was in the May revise, and it's still the state enacted budget. We are, even though we're counting on the prior SWIFT plus COLA, I will mention our FTES targets. They haven't changed since the tentative budget, but we're still looking at a target of 3,403 FTES. This is back up to a 90% restoration to our 2019-20 FTES. Then in our forecast for 24-25, as far as our targets go, we are at 3,781, which is back to our 2019-20 levels. And for 25-26, our target is 3,894, which is a 3% increase over the 24-25 target. So those are just some of the revenue assumptions built into the budget summary and the forecast. On the expense side, we are including a 8.22% COLA pass-through for all permanent employee groups as well as associate faculty. So those salary schedules will reflect that 8.22% COLA. The benefits are the typical benefits that we have our STRS and our PERS, medical, dental, vision, and with the appropriate rates for STRS and PERS, as well as an slight increase for medical, dental, and vision overall. For our jumping to other operating, there is a small increase in other operating, also represents a discretionary budget for our programs and departments. There is a slight increase, and that is partially for ensuring that there's ongoing funding for our CR Police Department, as well as some funds for our wrestling program, men's and women's wrestling program. For capital outlay, except on here, unfortunately, on the assumptions, it's 50,000, but it's actually, we've increased it by another 50,000, so it's 100,000 total capital outlay. 40 to 50,000 of that has been set aside for server replacement, which we've been sorely needed, and we're throwing it into the budget this year. So I'm happy to see that happening. For our transfers out, we have our typical transfers out. We have 90,000 to the CDC. We have 70,000 or almost 775,000 to the Shively Farm. And again, for the CDC and the Shively Farm, we assess those transfers out. These are just the planned amounts. If we need to adjust them down by the end of the year, we will do so, just to make sure that those programs get the adequate support, but not that we're providing more support than they need. And then we have 750,000 going out to other post-employment benefits, or OPEB. And there is one transfer out that is missing from this summary right here, but it's an additional 500,000 that is going out for our debt service for our COP for the stadium project upgrade and the design services for student housing. So those are the assumptions, the major assumptions within the budget. And Julie, if you can go to the next page, so PDF page 9 or report page 2, and we make that a little bit bigger. Thank you. So here we have our actuals. If you look at the 3 different data columns, we have our actuals for 21-22. We have our estimated actuals for 22-23. We're showing right now, which is great, a ending fund balance, estimated ending fund balance of 9.266 million, or 25%, which is at our stated goal of 2 months worth of expenditures. So that's great news. That's good to go into the current year with that good beginning fund balance. Looking at the final budget for 23-24, those some of the assumptions I've already mentioned. We have that state apportionment, 39.81 million. We also have our other state or other local and federal sources that factor in for a total revenue of 42.462 million. Then with our salaries and benefits, that does reflect, as I mentioned, the COLA pass-through and the necessary increases to our benefits. We have our fixed expenses and our other operating and our capital outlay. One of the bigger differences from the tentative budget to the final budget is the other outgo. Prior iterations of the budget have shown a $1.9 million figure of other outgo. That was factoring in our estimated debt service if we were actually going out for construction dollars for student housing, which we're on pause with right now. And then 500,000 to go to our COP. As I mentioned, that COP, that service is now considered a transfer out. As we've been working with our auditors on kind of where these actually fit in the budget, this will actually be a transfer out. So I just wanted to mention that difference. So with all the different expenditures, yes.
Yeah, I was a little confused on 500,000. So, and I'm on the same page as you are. So it's there now, but just as a different line item. It's not a transfer out. So where is it?
So it is actually in the transfer out line item. So it's shown as a negative 1.41 million. That is our total transfers out. 500,000 of that is the debt service transfer out.
Okay, so that is taken into account when we get to our ending fund percent, 25%. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah. So to get to that 8.412 million ending fund balance, we have take our total beginning fund balance plus our expected revenues as considered our sources for the year, less our total expenditures as well as transfers out, and that's what that 8.412 million is, or 19.4% ending fund balance.
That's the same question.
Yeah.
Did that answer?
Yes, thank you. But Trustee Joy might have a similar something.
I had the same question, but I had another question on the page. So the salaries, and that I see a jump in like $3.5 million. So is that all the contract raises, or do employees, or do faculty, or
it's everything factored in?
Okay. And all the administrative raises are all in the $3.5 million. Okay.
Any other questions on the final budget summary before I move on to the forecast? Okay.
Oh, so then if you're doing this, so on page 8, the unrestricted general, the salary analysis. So what's non-instructors regular?
Julie, can you jump to page 15, please?
Because that went up way up.
So you said which one?
The non-instructors regular.
So that would be so a part of the increases you're seeing that percent change column, and most of them have gone up. One thing to keep in mind is when we're looking at the estimated actuals for 22-23, that factors in employees who have resigned or moved on, and we've had vacancy gaps. Whereas the final budget 23-24, every single position in the inventory, it's assumed that an employee is in that position 100% of the year. So that's where you're seeing some of the variance, but that line item particularly, I think it's a factor of the positions being there for the full year. This is also counseling and librarian, which I think it's just increases to salaries. And again, I think it's just people being in a position for the full year.
So that's who those people are.
Correct.
Okay, that was part of the question. Okay. Thank you.
Then if there are no further questions on this page, let's jump to page 19, or it's on report page 12. So here we have the forecast. So again, it includes the first column. We have the final budget for 23-24, again showing the 19.4% in fund balance. Then we have our 24-25 forecast. For the COLA in both 24-25 and 25-26, we're assuming a 4% COLA. We are, as I mentioned, factoring in the FTS targets of 3,781 for 24-25. Again, that's back to our 2019-20 levels, and then a 3% increase for 25-26. With those increases factored in with our calculations, the SCIF is favorable for the district in both of those out years. I do want to mention about 24-25. That is the year that our hold harmless as we know it ends, and the new revenue protection that kicks in. It's similar to hold harmless. Well, let me put it this way. So 24-25 will become the new base year or floor for our revenue, and of which in future years our revenue can't go below. But unlike our current hold harmless, it does not increase by COLA each year. So that's a big difference to factor in. So we really want to look on maximizing our revenue in 24-25. So I might be looking at doing some summer enrollment shifts, if you want to call it that, to get those FPS numbers up. For 24-25 on the expense Assumptions, we are factoring in a full COLA pass-through for all permanent staff as well as associate faculty, factoring in all the statutory increases for the benefits. Our transfers out include all our typical transfers out, including the $500,000 for our debt service, and everything factored in. We're looking at a 19% ending fund balance, which is slightly down from the prior year, but in numbers wise, it's actually a little bit up. It's just because that percentage of total expenditures, the total expenditures going up themselves is what's bringing the percent down.
Because it was a topic, are trustee stipends and benefits included in here somewhere?
Yes, they are included in salaries, includes the stipend, and then the benefits are included, and any type of taxes that are on the employer are included in benefits.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yes.
Would you please reinforce a comment? And that is that so far when COLA comes to us, it just comes on top of our revenue. And that's why we can pass it through. So going in 25, 26, if we're no longer on hold harmless, which we would not be, are you saying that COLA will be included to us on a or not? In part of our revenue?
It will depend, and it really depends on a certain level what your revenue, your revenue. So the three calculations of revenue, which one is favorable for the district? When the SCIF is favorable, it is really getting passed on to the district in that the rates for the different SCIF metrics are increased by that COLA. And hold harmless, no, it is not getting passed on to the district. And then in the prior year SCIF plus COLA, that COLA is being added to your prior year. So in that sense, it is being passed on to the district. So it's kind of an it depends answer, but.
I just want to make sure that everyone understands that this is not a guarantee moving forward. Yeah. It is a what if, and it's an art at this point, not so much a science.
Good point. Thank you. Thank you. So just to
just so clarifying what you were saying was that going forward, were you saying that the COLA would be embedded in increases in various categories as opposed to just an added on figure to the budget? Is there a difference?
Yes.
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 So your ability to just pass it on is different if it's not an add-on to the whole budget.
Correct. Yeah, so you could say, for example, the rate may increase per the metric, but if you, for whatever reason, your accounts go down on that metric, you're going to lose out on some of that pass-through, so to speak.
So here it is, we're trying to balance, and I think I've said this before, but it's always good to reinforce it, is that we're not just increasing the FTS, which is we're trying to get to 2019 level, but also paying particular attention to the SCIF metrics that we can also take advantage of.
And then to wrap up the 25-26 forecast, the similar assumptions, the COLA pass-through for salaries, the benefit increases, our typical transfers out, we're looking at an estimated ending fund balance of 21.6. So with our increased enrollment and increasing our revenues, while our expenditures are still increasing, they're increasing a little slower than our revenues. So that's where you're seeing that positive growth in 25-26. Any further questions on the forecast? Or any part of the budget for that matter?
So now, as we've moved year to year, now we're forecasting into 25-26. We know the state is still, or in the budget discussions and the CCLC and everything, they're pointing out the economic problems at the state level, and that the state funding is likely going to decrease and all the implications of that. And for a while, we've been hearing about a fiscal cliff, but our budget projection is still doesn't look like we are on a fiscal cliff so far, even though we thought maybe by 25-26 we would be. So how would you characterize that question with the state versus our budget, at least through this projection?
So I think one of the things when the districts were concerned about the skiff cliff was the enrollment decline, which we've been fortunate we've been regaining our enrollment. So I think that's one of the reasons why the skiff cliff is not such a concern for the district specifically. But when you're talking about the state budget, of course, that is a concern, where the state may allow you to earn a certain amount, but they may not be able to pay it. So we're continually assessing as we go through the different apportionment reports, which also tell us if there's a certain deficit level by the state. We continue to monitor that. So far throughout the years, there have been deficits. They usually zero out, but sometimes it's a year and a half after the fact that they finally zero out. So you kind of have an IOU from the state, whereas you still get to earn that revenue. It's just when do they actually pay you for it? Does that help answer your question?
Yeah. And I was distinguishing between the skiff formula problems and the fiscal cliff that was even discussed at the Monterey conference, which wasn't long ago. So two different things.
Trustee Kelly?
Thank you. Page 12 of the PDF, page 12, you talk about general fund expenditures increasing by 18%. On page 9, 23-24, fund balance decreases by 5.6%. I'm wondering for 23-24, are there any vacant employee positions that could impact that budget that could be evaluated for potential cost savings? Do you have any plans around that for either 23-24 or 24-25?
We are always looking at that weekly through cabinet, is looking at which positions are so mission critical that we have to fill and which ones that we can hold out. And right now, so we do this on a weekly basis.
And I mean, how are you feeling in terms of like the need to trim there or continue to expand there based on our strategic initiatives, especially as it relates to student success?
We are going to continue to fill positions that are mission critical for what we have to do to move forward. And that's probably the best answer I can give you today, because I can't really, I don't have a crystal ball to see what happens after the November election and then see what happens to the state budget after November.
Thank you.
Are there any other pages that you wanted to bring to our attention?
Let's see. I guess if we could go to PDF page 20 or report page 13. So far we've been talking about the unrestricted general fund. This is the restricted fund, which, as you're talking about some of those basic needs for students and student services, a lot of the categorical programs that help serve the students are accounted for within here. We have our federal sources. That's really our Upward Bound and TRIO, and our federal work study program is actually reflected there in federal sources. We have our state sources. That's some of our bigger categorical programs, such as student equity and achievement, EOPS, CARES, adult education. Then the local sources, that's kind of where some of our student fees go. So that would be parking, our student health, and then our student tech fees are accounted there. And so we've been doing a very good job of keeping track of the position inventory, making sure that there aren't any duplicative positions in there. So we're always doing a review of the position inventory, as President Flamer mentioned, but just showing here that we have the monies that come in. There's not a lot of carryover. We don't do any carryover necessarily for the federal or state programs. We're really supposed to spend those allocations within a time frame for very specific purposes. So if there is any carryover, it's really for those local student fee sources that are supporting students. So that's kind of what I wanted to mention on this page. Also, if we could jump to PDF page 22 or report page 15. So this is our debt service fund, and this is where we've been accounting for our Measure Q when the tax dollars come in and then the principal and interest payments go out. This is where that's reflected. But also now that we have the certificate of participation, you're going to see some additional activity within this debt service fund, and that is that transfer in. You'll see for the revenue sources, we have 500,000 coming in for 23-24, and then we have going down to the expense side. That transfer out of $446,870, that's the actual debt service payment that will be going out for our certificate of participation this year. Then I would, okay.
And I don't know if this is the right time to ask the question, but since part of that COP money was for the design of the dorms, so are we just going to keep that money separate because we don't know where those dorms might be, or are you still moving ahead with designing them, or what's the plan?
So our current plan is to get to a certain point in design where we can get a fairly accurate construction cost estimate, and then use that information to look at potential funding sources.
But what if the dorms were going off property? So that design is just for on campus.
That could be just for on campus.
Right.
And so right now we're exploring other ways and other places to put dorms. So
well, that was my question, is if we were going to go off campus with the dorms, that could be a completely different design.
It could. It depends on where we want to take it. Yes.
Yeah. So that's why I'm wondering, is it prudent to be spending the money designing dorms that we're not sure where?
We've already spent significant money toward that. So right now we want to spend just enough to allow us that if we're going to do something on this campus, what the cost would be.
Okay.
And then we're going to put it on pause.
Trustee Mallory, did you have a question?
No, I can't find this page, but that's my.
I couldn't find it.
Page 15.
If you look at the bottom, it's 15.
Yeah, but I was.
22.
Yeah, got it.
And then the only other fund that I was going to kind of discuss is our, it's PDF page 30 or report page 23. And this is the Associated Student Organization Fund. So the concrete, ASCR has its own fund, which you might be getting familiar with, but I did want to point out that so we have in 21-22, the actuals, there wasn't a whole lot of expenditure activity, but you see a huge jump in 22-23 is because there was a significant increase in the activities and the funding of the ASCR for different student-related events and initiatives. And we are looking forward to seeing similar activity as you see in the budget. It's we're estimating about a $93,000 expenditure budget. So looking forward to working with ASCR on that. Any other budget items that you would like me to go over? If not, that was all I was planning to go over.
Do any trustees have any other pages they'd like some clarification on?
I just wanted to say again, I mean, this is a great presentation for your budget. You're always on top of it. I always feel confident getting these reports from you. Thank you very much.
I wanted to also mention that when we look at the projections out for 3 years, so refreshing to see it stay so positive, hasn't always been the case. So that reflects a lot of talented administration and staff work happening at this campus. And I want to acknowledge that. So I will call the question. All those in favor of approving the final budget, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. We will go on to 4.3. First read board policies and administrative procedures.
That's a conflict.
Yes.
Okay, so on behalf of the committee, I would just like to make a couple of comments. All of these three policies rely heavily or entirely on state law, whether it's an ed code or government code. And we spent a lot of time reviewing them and have a lot of help from Julie regarding the templates and source of those things. The fact that these are in large part verbatim out of the legal statutes. And so as a result, we did not make large changes to these because really we can't. We did make some small edits, and I can point out to you what those are. In the teleconferencing AP 2325, we added wording to make sure that it was clear that that all voting had to be done by roll call. So that appears now in 3 different places in this policy to be sure whether we're doing it under emergency or other, whatever reason teleconferencing is being used in the meetings for member participation, that all voting has to be roll call. And that is the only change that we made to the state's template. In the conflict of interest one, this did not, this didn't add any reporting requirements or any different positions who have to report. This also follows state law on public officials' income and financial conflict reporting. The only discussion I would mention is that this policy and the state template uses the term he, she, they, or his, her, their. And we had some discussion about whether we should just say they or whether we should leave it he, she, they. The committee didn't really agree on that, so it's up to the board. Currently, the draft in front of you keeps the state template wording of he, she, they. Last on BP 2330 on voting. The only edit we made was just to take out a redundancy in the wording so that the second session says the board shall act by majority vote of all members, not all of the entire membership, which was redundant. That's the only change we made. And I think that's just pointing out that in these cases, it's not a majority in terms of the quorum, it's a majority of all the membership of the board.
Same question. Well, thank you for doing that. So, research of these new policies, because there were a lot of changes and additions from previous times, and thank you, Julie, for bringing that forward to me.
I did have a question, and I keep rereading it. It's the one regarding the quorum, BP 2330. And it's the very last sentence that apparently is deleted. The advisory vote of the student trustees shall not be included in determining the vote required to carry any measure before the board. So since it was deleted, I was reading it that it should be included, and that would make us a board of 8, and I don't think that was the intention.
No, I don't think it's the intention either. I would refer to Julie because I think it's followed the state template for the wording on this policy. So I think it's that there just is no reference to student advisory vote because it's not a part of voting on the property decisions. Is that correct? Yes.
Yeah.
So
student vote under.
So the student trustee vote just is not part of the policy.
Okay. I mean, I just thought that sentence sort of affirmed that, and the fact that it was deleted just gave me pause.
I think that the advisory vote of the student trustee shall not be included in determining the vote required means that the student trustee might be giving an advisory vote. I think in the template and in the law, the student trustee would not have an advisory vote on the property decisions. You see what I'm saying? So there simply is no reference, excuse me, because there would not be a student advisory vote, period, whether it was counted or not. There just wouldn't be one because the student trustee wouldn't have standing to vote even in an advisory capacity on the property decisions.
I believe that's one of the requirements of closed session that will be discussed, and the student trustee wouldn't be in closed session.
Right. I thank you. I think I didn't appreciate the fact that we were only talking about property decisions.
Yeah, that's all of this is. All of these.
I clearly didn't read it carefully enough. I just thought it was in general, and not just for closed session groups.
I take your point. I understand your point. I think that reference was about the votes on property decisions, even if it's not indented underneath. It's only because we know that is not a true statement for general student things. I think that it was because because this section is about property decisions.
That one. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your comments. We'll see this next month at a second meeting.
Is this time for a break?
Yeah.
Or...
Why don't we take a 5-minute break? 7 minutes. Yes. This one is 5.1, accreditation.
Dr. Blakemore.
Hello, Board of Trustees. It's a pleasure to see you again today and always to work with you. And I want to start off by thanking those of you who sent in those comments on the standard 4. I already read those and those will be very useful. So I really appreciate that. So thank you. And then I have given you my report already. If I don't have anything to add at this time, if you have questions for me, please fire away.
Okay. Just I noticed that it was more inclusive and like different groups were included. Like, you know, as a former classified employee, when we talked about accreditation, I was like, oh, what's that? You know, we hardly even knew about it. And I noticed that like CSEA was, you know, so I just think when it's more inclusive, the buy-in's better. So I just think that's just such a positive.
I agree. That's why I'm sitting here.
I'm just curious, and I don't know who to ask on this, but you know, we just had the passing of the education master plan, and I'm wondering if anything has come up so far in our preparation for submitting this report to commission. If there are things that pop up about changes to the education master plan, or in light of anything that we're discovering, or if that's even something that is being thought about in the context of the two.
Let me just make sure I understand what you're asking. Are you asking me if the education master plan has caused changes in the report that we're going to send to the accrediting agency, or are you asking if
no, more the other way, like okay, things as we've compiled our report for submission to the commission, have there been things that have informed us about possible changes that we need to make to the education master plan or anything like that?
May I?
Yeah.
No.
That was going to be my answer.
No. However, what the beauty of the process is, as we've talked about, that it highlights the operational changes we have to do on a daily basis to make sure that we hit the standards and everything is important.
Any other questions? I really appreciate this report. It was very succinct.
Oh, good.
And very clear and shows a lot of progress. Thank you for your work.
Yeah, as somebody who's worked on these for 15 or more years now, maybe 20 even, I look back in my files. We're moving from the old Creative Arts building where my office is to the new Creative Arts building, so I'm getting rid of a lot of old files. I was thrown on to one of the committees my very first year here. I didn't know that much about everything, but boy, we have really come a long way, and I hope I made that clear in that last paragraph. This is been a really good process, and I think we're going to do really well this time. So.
And what's also important is, now I know that you don't like for us to say good things about you, Dr. Blakemore, but what I am here is that there is tremendous amount of confidence from the institution on having Pete as the AMO and guiding us moving forward because of the processes that he's been a part of in the past. So he's been part of the college when we had a significant amount of work to do to get out of the warm embrace of Dr. Dino. And now he knows the things that we have to do, and there's a lot of confidence in where you're guiding us, Dr. Blakemore. So much appreciated, and also the tried chairs, the AMs.
Yeah, well, thank you. I was going to mention that two of them are sitting right here. Craig Mayer and Crystal Morris, and Sean Thomas is also the lead writer, and he's the tried chair. And the committee has been super helpful for me, just getting everything together. So I'd like Trustee Pirati said, this is really inclusive, and we just added more associate faculty members to the committee, and so really people from across the college or community are participating in this, and we're going to do some listening sessions in Del Norte and in KT, and we're going to really find out what people think about the ICER so far, and we're figuring out how to get that into the process.
Yeah. just one more thing I think of is like making it inclusive. Like as a staff member, one of the findings we had back when we were on Show Cause was posting syllabi to online. And being in the division office, we used to just take the syllabi, throw them in a drawer, and whoever gave them to us, fine, you know, whatever faculty. Nobody ever said, oh, you have to do something with this. And then it was like, when we went on Show Cause, it's like, boom, we got to do this. Every syllabi had to be online, every section. And so, you know, by making it more inclusive, then there's so many people on campus that it can involve. You just think it's certain people, but it really is the whole institution.
And that's going to be the rest of our work after we submit a report in December, is making sure everybody remembers that the process isn't over yet. We have still another 8 or 9 months to go.
Yeah, it's ongoing.
It's ongoing. It's always ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
I would stay around, but I have to. I'm moving a building from one side of campus to the other, so I have to get over there and keep working on that. So anyway, I hope you all come and visit the new Creative Arts Complex soon. It's beautiful over there. It's really great. So thanks. Bye.
5.2 Counseling and Advisory Program.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon. So my wonderful colleague, Jennifer Bailey, and I will be sharing an update on our district counseling and advising program. And while we get that set up, I just want to brag about Jen Bailey for a moment, if I may. Jen is working as a student development manager, so oversees our advising, evaluations, welcome center, and outreach for the district. She has been with the district for over 20 years and comes from a background of exceptional advising, coordination of advising efforts, and evaluation and articulation. So we're very fortunate to have her knowledge base and her leadership within our student services.
And if I can also add that you are former CRC student athlete, so
yeah.
So you have.
So with that, we'll get started. See like that? I just clicked the play. Okay. And picture refresh. Okay. Just want to make sure I can do it. Okay. Okay. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you all today. As Dr. Flamer and Dr. Morris said, I'm a former College of the Redwoods student, graduate, student athlete. I went to Humboldt State, got my degrees, and College of the Redwoods is a very magical place. So, and my heart is with students, and it always has been. So with that said, I would like to talk about one of my most favorite departments here on campus. I'm going to read the mission statement. The mission of CR Counseling and Advising Program at College of the Redwoods is to support student success and completion through providing equitable, student-centered, and data-informed services in the areas of academic advising, counseling, career planning, transfer preparation to students regardless of location or mode of delivery. So a little bit about us. Counselors and advisors are assigned to general counseling and to special programs district-wide. Focus support and specific services are provided through general counseling and advising and through special programs. All counselors and advisors across the district meet monthly with updates, information sharing, and ongoing professional development. So I won't read all of this, but these are our 4 primary focuses in counseling and advising and the services that we provide. So I'm just going to highlight a few. Assist students in, this is under academic. So under academic, we assist students in clarifying and establishing educational goals. We help students design educational plans. We provide accurate and timely information regarding certificate degrees and transfer requirements. We also assist with placement for math and English. And we coordinate with evaluations department for acceptance of coursework from other institutions. Another thing we do is address academic and or progress probation issues, which do come up quite often. Personal. We also provide support and assistance in navigating personal problems. And another key to personal is provide referrals to on-campus, off-campus, virtual, and community services. We also provide career counseling. And then our focused support and programs here on campus that we utilize is Athletes Basic Needs, Behavior Intervention Team, CalWorks, Career, DSPS, EOPS, the Multicultural Educational Center, Outreach, Transfer, Trio, and Veterans. Okay. So this is some data we pulled from our student tracking database called SARS. These are our counseling and advising contacts. So on the left-hand side, I don't know if it's on your left or your right, depending on, but it's on my left. This is the unduplicated head count. So in 2021-22, we saw 4,642 students. In 2022-23, we saw 4,990 students. And this is district-wide, so our Del Norte campus, our DSPS student, or our DSPS program, Eureka campus, EOPS, and special programs. And then on the right-hand side, we have duplicated headcount. So what that means is we could see a student for dismissal, academic dismissal. We could also see that same student for transfer requirements. These are our top 6 reason codes of why we see students. So that number at the bottom right-hand corner that says 19,704, we see a lot more traffic than that. We have several reason codes in SARS, and these are our top 6 of why students come in and meet with us. And I do want to say, going back to the 4,990 number, a few things I want to note. I think as we transition back to in-person classes and in-person services, that number is going to grow. I also think based with our enrollment growth, as Julia also mentioned, and our current leadership, this number will also grow. I also do want to mention that, let's see, all of these contacts, these six reason codes, are for all modalities. So not only do we meet with students in person, but we also meet with them online. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Crystal. Thank you.
As Jen advances the slide, what you'll see here in this slide graphic is that we have the disbursement of the academic counselors and student development advisors throughout the district. So while some are assigned to our general counseling and advising office from main campus, we have them embedded as well within program specific support. We follow the foundational 1972 student developmental advising model, which emphasizes the student and counselor and advisor as partners in educational discovery, and then also an exploration of life and vocational roles. This then leads to program choice, course choice, and build out of scheduling and courses. Along with that, though, our counselors and advisors at College of the Redwoods apply a vast variety of approaches from their toolkits, and these can include strengths-based advising, prescriptive advising. We do a lot of prescriptive advising, depending on referrals, proactive, intrusive, and then of course, the oftentimes overlooked aspect of mentorship and coaching that comes into the academic counseling and advising environment. So when you combine the 1972 developmental model with those toolkits over an observational period of the work that our counselors and advisors do, we now embrace what is known and becoming much more well-known as the holistic advising model. The shift here
then emphasizes that the student and counselor advisor have a relational rapport. And from the basis of that relational connection, they emphasize the student learning as a process. So rather than the transaction of here's a program, here's the student educational plan, here's a course schedule, there is this transformational process that occurs of saying, I see you as a person, I take into account everything that is you across the domains of the academic, personal, and professional. And then I emphasize the direction for you that's going to be most supportive. I help you connect to the supports that will help you walk that journey. And then I watch all of that through the lens of my ongoing professional development, my own cultural competence, and my own drive for ongoing innovation. So the translation there is that we, by following a holistic advising model, also create a natural and organic assessment loop. Got it. Thank you. Just another way of looking at the holistic advising from the picture, again, it's the whole person. So from Hamline University's definition of holistic advising, again, it's the whole student taking into consideration all of the many complexities that make up a person. And it moves the developmental model of transactional that we have historically followed into transformational. This puts us in alignment with Ed Master Plan Initiative number 4 with the wraparound services. That helps tie us even more firmly to our accreditation standards 2B, as well as 2C, 2, 3, and 5. And I think for the students, more importantly, it provides this stronger and more supported academic pathway, which in turn, because we've started with the whole person in those complex domains of personal, academic, and professional, we help them achieve strong educational life and career goals. Next slide. We do have our work cut out for us because of the changing trends in education, the changing trends in who our students are, as well as what our community is asking of us. So over the course of the next 6 months, our counseling and advising program will be doing some deep inquiry into these areas. Meaning we're going to invite some reimagining of counseling and advising to meet the need of the changing student, today's student as well as tomorrow's. We want to reimagine how we can meet the needs of our community, especially with the changes in workforce and economic development. We want to look at how we can reinforce connection between CR and Cal Poly Humboldt. We want to really be mindful of the technology influence through AI, as well as software and cloud-based wraparound support services, and how might we utilize those to best serve our students. And we want to really explore and commit to software solutions that provide multimedia online and wraparound student services throughout the student journey, not just outreach to matriculation, but matriculation, completion, and beyond. And then we also want to really tie in with our faculty colleagues and facilitate more collaborative wraparound interventions that complement the student journey. That's just a brief overview of what we do within the counseling and advising realm. Jennifer and I are open to some questions.
Mr. Kelly? Thank you. What role do associate faculty play in the life cycle as it exists now versus maybe with what you're envisioning and planning in the future? Because in my experience, many adjunct faculty work in both systems, the Cal Poly system here, or they work in local businesses in here and things like that. So I guess I'm just wondering how does their perspective play into your system?
Well, we do have a practice of contracting with associate faculty counselors. The challenge becomes that it's term by term. And some allocation academic year by academic year. They are also embedded typically within special programs. And so it relies very heavily on the funding allocation available, as well as the demand based on the number of students that we're bringing in for MTS.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was great, and I'm really glad to see that you approach advising through that holistic model. So I have a couple of questions. So one is, in terms of software, are you looking into, have you thought about software that facilitates communication on the back end between, yes, so advisors, faculty, just to keep that ongoing record? I think that is something that can be really helpful in terms of the student interface. So that long-term record and also across different units.
Thank you for that. We've recognized the importance of not only having the district-wide through an online platform, but in the moment connectivity. How we wonder how many students are lost to making the connection to vital support or following through on a challenge that they've identified with perhaps a faculty member, but out of shyness or a sense of disconnect, do not follow through and go to that respective office. Whereas with the right platform, and we are exploring several, there could be kiosks located potentially in each building on campus, and that student could walk up, or that faculty member, if they so chose, could escort them to that kiosk. They tap a button and they connect with financial aid. They tap a button, they connect with a counselor. And that includes our campuses at Elmore and KT downtown.
And I wonder if there might not be some opportunities to share platforms with maybe California Humboldt. And then my other question was around that intrusive advising. So are there any sorts of requirements that students have to see an advisor before they can register, or so that there is contact between each student and an advisor?
It's a wonderful question. And the truth lies in program specific. So for general counseling and advising, we do not have a hold that's placed on any student enrollment process that requires them to visit the counselor or advisor first. Some programs, however, to gain entry, must meet with a program counselor or advisor before receiving the benefits of that program.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for the thorough presentation. It's very helpful, and I'm hoping we can get this PowerPoint added to the Word docs so that is it now? Okay, because I couldn't pull it up from my Word docs. It's excellent PowerPoint. We appreciate all the information that's in it. Thank you. Okay, ready for organization reports, academic senate. Oh, I'm sorry. Recognition, I put my notes on top of 5.3. Recognition of new employees and employee skills. So, did you want to make
This is just information. I do want to call attention to Dr. Morris's award for the Kathy D. Smith Award, and all the folks who were nominated for the award were wonderful, and it's great to have that you were the awardee. It's well deserved.
That's quite an honor. She was a very pivotal person in our institution. Yes, you are. Thank you. All right, sorry for that oversight. 6.1 Academic Senate President.
Is Dr. We're online at all?
I think so.
Yeah. Right, 6.2 CRO, and there's no confederate values.
So if we had a question,
just ask me and I'll pass it on.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you. Glad to be here in person. I'm teaching on campus and moving into the new buildings. We're all over the place right now. So thank you for having this on the agenda. It's nice to be able to report to you every month and keep in contact on what's going on. I didn't do a written report because I had the wrong day in my head for when the board packet was, so I corrected in my head. So hopefully that equates to me getting it at a time next time. So over the summer, CRPO officers are busy doing a variety of different things. So I thought I'd just kind of highlight a few things that we've been involved in. One is SARPCO meetings. So that's the stipend and reassigned time. I think we had 3 over the summer. And some of the highlights of things that we were looking at is the POCR teams, which are the teams that are really pivotal as we're moving forward with the CVC OEI for online education. So there's going to be POCR coordinators, lead reviewers, faculty guides, faculty authors. So all of that work has been asked for by the Office of Instruction has done a call out to ask for faculty to participate in these things. So there's a rubric on online education that comes from the state. So the CVC OEI comes out with a rubric, and we need to be at a certain bar to be able to be a home college on the website. So these positions are going to help with making sure that we're doing all that's needed to get our courses at the top. And so for home college and people from outside the area will be taking our online courses also. So we have a lot of talk about that in our SARPCO meetings, so that's why I'm bringing it up. Over the summer, Eric Kramer and I worked with Crystal Morris and Lisa Getzky and Yana Herrera and Aaron Ball to talk about a convocation session. And so there was a convocation session that was jointly presented by those individuals, talking about building community, having a campus, like some of what was being talked about, some of the trauma that's been experienced and how we can be responsive as a college community to what our students and our faculty have been through too. So it was a well-received session. I wasn't there because I was doing something on the fact board. So kind of jump to that. So as a board member on FAC, one of the things that that organization is focusing on is increasing membership. The increasing of membership allows us to have more money in the organization, which then can equate to more lobbyists, hopefully. And looking at an organization like the Campaign for College Opportunity, they have 6 lobbyists that are in the state capitol, and FAC at this point doesn't have a full person. So more dues, more members, more dues equals more time in the state capitol to advocate for our faculty and our students, which is pretty important. Some of the things that have happened in recent years with remedial math and English, with the repeatability of courses, all of those things are coming out of legislation that FAC wants to work on. So I got to talking about that because I went to Mendocino College during convocation to talk to their faculty about being more involved in FAC. It's the first time I was at that college. It's a beautiful college. It was nice to be there, and they were very hospitable to us. Also, over the summer, our negotiation team was meeting. They have a list of things that were part of the contract that was approved last spring that are going to be ongoing areas of negotiation. So a lot of colleges that we meet with talk about ongoing negotiations. But it's not every 3 years you negotiate the contract and then you close it and you're done. It feels like we're kind of moving in that direction too, because there's new things that come up. And so that ongoing negotiation process takes place. One thing, a piece of good news, Senator McGuire, some of you may have heard, has been elected to president of the Senate. So our senator, the state senator, will be the most powerful senator. So FAC and some other faculty organizations are looking at ways to celebrate him, do some type of social event with some of the other colleges in our district so that we can make sure he knows who we are. Eric Kramer and I have been meeting with him pretty regularly. And the last time we met with him, Eric said to me, I think he knows who we are. He said, yeah, I think he does recognize us. And when we're in sessions about doing advocacy, that's the thing they always tell us, that we want you to know who your senators and representatives are, but we want them to know who you are also, so that they're listening to you more. And then finally, we did meet with Dr. Flamer over the summer several times and continue to have that collaborative relationship. And I don't know how he always answers his email within 5 minutes of sending it, but he does, so it's always available if we need to chat. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you.
6.3 classified, President England.
Good afternoon. I also apologize for my report not being written this month. I missed the appropriate date too. So got a few things just to mention today. Classified staff have been hard at work this semester so far. It's exciting to see all the students back on campus and working to assist them in all ways possible. It was also great to see our colleagues in person at Convocation a few weeks ago. We'd like to once again extend our congratulations to the 22-23 Classified Employee of the Year Lead Campus Safety Officer, Josh Stanley. Josh, you are an asset to this institution, and we are grateful to have you as part of the classified staff. I also want to include in this report an enormous shout out to the 22-23 Catherine G. Smith Leadership Award recipient, Dr. Crystal Morse. If you didn't know, Crystal was once part of the classified staff and also a former CSEA leader. Her mentorship while chapter president created an environment of working relationships that have continued to this day. Our delegates to CSEA's annual conference at the end of July in Reno gave a report out at our chapter meeting last week. Some of the highlights included having keynote speaker Chris Smalls, who is the president of the Amazon Labor Union, present, and he gave a quite lengthy presentation and got everyone really excited. Delegates to conference also adopted the 23-24 CSEA state budget. They elected state officers. There was member appreciation. There were breakout sessions during education days, and excuse me, there was also an event that's held every year raising funds for the Dorothy Bjork Humanitarian Assistance Fund, which brought in over $120,000 from members and delegates that were in attendance that day. And it was probably a couple hours long. And it's always one of my favorite parts when I've attended conference to see that in action and buckets going around, people dropping in money, chapters bringing checks budgeted to bring. It's a very exciting time. We are preparing to ratify articles that were recently reopened for negotiations from our 21-24 contract. And we're also looking forward to surveying our membership for the next CSEA contract for 24-27. To add to Trustee Prajati's comments earlier about accreditation, we do have 3 members from the classified staff that are serving on the AOC, or the Accreditation Oversight Committee. Those members are Rachel Warzy, Gussie Solom, and myself. And it is good to have classified representation on there. We're split out into groups. There's a lot of reading and talking, and all of that evidence mentioning is very well not only received, but being documented. And then based on the report from Counseling and Advising Programs from Crystal and Jen, I want to give a personal shout out to I say my own student development advisor, and I always joke that I get a little possessive of our programs and staff and faculty down here at the downtown site, but good huge shout out to our own student development advisor, Jonathan Maiulo. His outreach efforts, his work at the correctional facility, his work everywhere he goes is phenomenal and has been such a positive addition and contribution to our programs and then to the college itself. So Johnny gets a good shout out from me today. And his efforts, like I said, that blow my mind. He's here, there, and everywhere. And that concludes my report today. If anybody has any questions, please let me know.
Any questions? No questions. Thank you.
Thanks
for your report. 6.4 Management Council President Margaret.
She's not here today.
And 6.5 Student Trustee. Do you have any additional comments?
No.
Moving on to administrative report 7.1.
I think I just have two comments. One is that I believe I talked to the board that we are exploring a healthcare training center in Crescent City. And I'm really glad to announce that Lori Johnson, Carrie Mayer, are going to go and meet with Hannah, CEO Hannah from Southern Coast. Mitch Hannah, but also Jeff Harris from the superintendent of Glenwood School, and start the initial conversation about what may it look like, where may it go, and how we can partner, but also identify additional community members that they can meet with sometime this month. So I will go and report back to the board after they get back to me and see where we're headed. And the other comment is I sent to the board, and we all know about the red-headed black belt article about Mercer. It was an interesting article and one that was not quite factual. So we have a group of folks, Jen Bailey, Carrie Mayer, but also Jessica Howard, Director of Mercer. We're going to meet with students tomorrow, but also next Thursday, and talk about the application process and kind of clarify what the facts truly are about the transition from the system that we had to the system that we're headed to. But also kind of talk about what their concerns are. And also, probably sometime this week, we'll send out a FAQ to all the faculty and students to clarify for them by question where we're headed and answer their questions. But also, we are going to focus our September 29th Times Standard article around this issue, so we can get our word out there via the Times Standard. I don't intend to debate with the red-headed black belt in public about what they said, but we will get our story out there at the end of this month.
The facts.
Just the facts. Yeah. And that is it. Are any questions? I'm sorry, are there any questions that trustees have?
Trustee Kelly?
Thank you. I'm curious, as you're talking to Del Norte folks about the medical training facility, are you working with the Humboldt Del Norte County Medical Society? They've got their Humboldt Del Norte Pre-Medical Education Task Force, HUMPET. Yeah, great acronym. But I know that they've been working hard on that, and I don't know what our engagement is there. I know that that society doesn't have a ton of engagement from the medical community in Del Norte, but I know that they're trying to.
It's a good idea. If any of the trustees have any other ideas of people that we should include in the conversation, please let me know.
Yes, you can.
And I was curious, the interviews for Student Services Vice President, are those going to be on Zoom? They were for the previous Vice President?
Yes.
They will be. Okay. Yes. And do you have a ballpark time frame?
I can send those to you plus a Zoom.
Okay. And when do you expect the committee will make a decision?
I will make a decision and I'll go to the October board meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
What the committee?
I didn't know the time frame. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to 7.2, Administrative Services. Vice President Morris.
First off, I just wanted to say welcome to Student Trustee Godfrey and thank you for your update on ASCR. On behalf of the business office, we do look forward to collaborating with ASCR on budget items this year. And so thank you. And then I also wanted to mention last year, the business office, and in addition to the entire district who has to work on the audit, we wrapped up what's considered our final visit from the auditors. It was virtual, but it's the time of year where we try to give them everything that's needed to get our audit drafted We got that wrapped up last week. We should be getting a draft audit soon. And so far there have been no red flags, nothing really mentioned, just some new things that have come up regarding leases, and things are looking good and moving forward in a timely fashion, and looking to have the books closed early, but knock on wood, this year. So we're really happy about that. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I do appreciate the goals that you have included, and also the information for the open forums. The transparency with William budget, I think, is to be commended. Thank you so much. All right, we'll move on to 7.3, Vice President of Instruction. Is she going to be on?
She is not online. If the trustees have questions that I may answer or get back to you with, please have your answer.
And I appreciate her saying her goals and objectives. All right, 7.4, Interim Vice President of Student Services, Dr. Moore.
Good afternoon once again. In addition to the written report, I'd also say a hearty congratulations and welcome to student trustees of Belgrade on behalf of the Office of Student Services. We look forward to partnering with ACR in their student engagement and leadership. I'd also like to thank the board for its approval of personnel actions from employees across student services, to include Eric Wright, Student Development Advisor for Athletics, Kristen McCauley, Evaluation Specialist, and Sierra Lucky, Administrative Office Assistant in DSPS. Each of these phenomenal humans plays a critical role in supporting students through matriculation, special program support, and academic advising. I'd like to also just provide a brief update on the increase we've been seeing in athletics. Currently, we have more unduplicated enrollments in fall and winter intercollegiate sports than we had for all athletics last year after census. So in 2022, after census, we had 150 athletes, 74 of whom were local. And this year we have 217, 105 of which are local. Any questions from the board that I can address?
Thank you for your report. And 7.5, Vice President Weir.
Thank you. Trustee Godfrey, welcome. Congratulations. Really looking forward to having you at the table and hearing. It's wonderful to have a student. I want to tack on a little bit to what President Flamer talked about with the Regional Healthcare Training Center for Del Norte. I had coffee with Barbara Browning from the California Center for Rural Policy, who's keenly involved with healthcare initiatives in Del Norte County, and she helped us put the list together of invitees for the meeting that's going to happen tomorrow. It's just the initial conversation. So in addition to representatives from Sutter Coast and Del Norte County schools, we'll have representatives from both the Tolwa and the Yurok tribes, United Indian Health Service, Open-Door Health, and that will be the initial conversation. From that conversation, we'll expand the stakeholders, and thank you for the heads up, Trustee Kelly. And I also wanted to thank you, Trustee Pedrotti, for your recognition that the classified staff membership on the AOC assists with the the buy-in on the report. And I want to emphasize it so we're looking for to have that input on the front end. So the classified staff, everyone on that committee has been amazing, and classified staff certainly brings a unique and important perspective to that work. And so I appreciate that. I am happy to answer any questions related to my written report.
I was curious about the meeting tomorrow. Is there any buy-in from Brookings? Or is it possible, or the state lines?
We have talked about how we may connect with our friends in Brookings, and I'm sure that will be part of the conversation tomorrow. I'm not sure if there will be anyone from across cross the state line there tomorrow, but that is something that we've talked about, just the proximity to, you know, resources, both human resources and information resources that exist in Brookings is.
Well, in such a huge, wealthy retirement community,
like
that's
yeah,
the key.
be able to.
Trustee Matthews.
I haven't had any contact with it for quite a while, but Del Norte Healthcare District, are you aware of the Del Norte Healthcare District? This is they have a board of directors. They have resources. It is a long time holdover from the early hospital, and they do actually, I believe, have a tax-based resource, and have been interested in education. So, at some point,
Thank you for your report and the support of your policy graduates. Thank you. And 7.6, our Director of College Investment and Foundation,
trustees. So in addition to my report, September, October is always a very busy time for the foundation. We're in the process of wrapping up the auction, making sure we collected everybody's money and thanked everyone. And then we'll be launching the Presidential Innovation Awards for fall, employee giving. We're sponsoring several events in the community. There's the Floyd Batiga Art Gallery recognition that'll happen sometime in October, November. We're continuing to expand our efforts to support athletics in their fundraising. They're going to be doing a golf tournament. And then we'll begin fundraising for the stadium project. And once again, going back into the Redwoods Championship Club and auction. So, questions?
Any questions, but again, congratulations on your successful auction.
Thank you. It's a good team of people. So we could not do it without athletics at the hip. So
All right, 8.1, approve trustee request to place an item on the agenda for future meetings or direct the staff to give a report. Trustee Jordan.
I'm not sure if it's coming up regularly, but I was curious where we were on 50-50 with salary increases and just looking at all the hires that weren't necessarily ed-based. I mean, all the new hires that weren't professors or associates. So I was just curious where we were. And I don't know if we get if that's scheduled regularly or.
It is.
Okay.
It's part of the board calendar.
Okay. So you know when that.
I do not.
Okay.
We can look it up on our.
Okay. So that was just. If it's regularly scheduled, then
I can let the board know in my weekly update.
I was just where we are. Okay.
So I believe from our previous discussion about benefits for trustees that we were to ask President Flamer to give us some estimate of a cost of providing benefits. I know that's not very defined because it's what benefits and copay or not, but we need that information to further discuss.
Yes, that continual discussion. Yeah. Trustee Kelly.
I just was curious if you could maybe tell us how much time or effort that would be. I just, doing a benefits analysis is no simple thing. I don't know if it's a big ask or.
It's not a big ask because all you're asking for is just the overview, right? You're not asking for a lot of detail by chats. So right now it's not difficult to do. But what I would like to do is clarify exactly what the board's asking for, right? So from what I understand, the board wants to know the analysis that if every trustee received the the benefits that an employee gets, excluding life insurance. Is that correct?
So we'd be talking about health insurance, vision, and dental.
Correct. And that's all. We're not talking about stipend as well.
No.
Not adding. Okay. All right.
And that analysis would include full pay, partial pay?
It would.
Okay.
Except that's actually not that easy to do because you're asking me to make assumptions.
Well, you could make, I don't mean to, you could make the assumption full pay and then what the last go around, what the trustees pay. But see, that's not. I mean, just as a basis.
So I would suggest that we just look at the full pay cost. Then we can talk about how we might, whatever.
Structure it.
So, if we just have that as a start.
Okay, then that's much easier to start.
So with the plans, is there still different plans? You know how there was the Redwood plan, or is there just one plan?
Therein lies what the difference is between we no longer have the Redwood plan versus the Oak plan.
Yeah.
But the CISC has a different plans within it.
Oh, there is different plans.
Let me do the research before answering the question.
Okay.
Any other items to recommend? Seeing none, I will disclose the agenda item for closed session. We will have a meeting with our labor negotiator to discuss CRFO negotiations. Yeah. So we will adjourn to closed session. It's any public comment?
No, there was no public comment.
So moving back to order, we're back to open session. And we have nothing to report, so I'd like to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.